Hey, are you a business owner, entrepreneur, or professional? If so, we want you to apply to be a featured guest on our show. My name is Adam Torres, and I host the Mission Matters series of podcasts. I've recorded over 3,000 episodes, and we are just getting started. How do you know if you'd be a good guest to be on the show? Well, only one way to find out, and that's to apply, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We want guests that have a story to tell, guests with a brand, a product, or a service that can benefit my audience of listeners. If this sounds like you, go to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. I'd love to talk to you and get to know more about your story. Again, head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Ahmie Baum on the line, and he's founder and CEO of Interchange Capital Partners. Ahmie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. Glad to be here.
All right, so excited to talk about today's topic. So it's not if, but when you will exit your business, and are you prepared? So big topic, a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs that listen to this show, and I know it's always a hot topic, so excited to get into that. But before we do, we'll start with our Mission Matters Minute. So, Ahmie, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. So that's our mission here. Ahmie, what mission matters to you?
Yeah, my mission is to nurture a life with myself and others around health, gratitude, and affluence. I want to help people get what they want and help potentially reframe some of the obstacles that are preventing them from getting there.
Awesome. I love bringing mission-based entrepreneurs and executives on the line and really just have them share, why they do what they do, what gets them up in the morning. So great, and thank you for sharing that. So just to get us started, maybe just give us a little bit of an overview of Interchange Capital Partners. So tell us a little bit more about the company, please. Sure.
Interchange Capital Partners is a startup with a 42-year history. We started Interchange Capital Partners on my 65th birthday. Prior to that, I spent the last 42 years working on Wall Street. I was with E.F. Hutton, and then that merged into a few. Then I got to Payne Weber, which ended up ultimately I finished my career at UBS and started Interchange Capital Partners so that we could focus on the business consulting side of our business as well as the traditional wealth management business. So Interchange has been around since June 12, 2020. And when I say it was a startup, because we started with zero, but obviously we had clients and we ended up bringing 90% of our clients over from UBS to us, and now we're working in helping clients deal with the inevitable. We call it transition planning, unlocking a lifetime of work. We work primarily with business owners, but we also work with professionals and doctors and others who are starting to recognize that there's going to be a next chapter, and how can they best prepare for that?
That's great, and I don't want to assume that all the listeners understand the difference in this space of being able to have your advisor also work on the consulting side, because it is a nuance. So traditionally, it wasn't always the case. So obviously, your current clients, they already know that, and they already get the value there. But I want to make sure that my audience gets what that means. And my background, for our audience that are new to this episode too, is my background was in finance as well. So that's why I want to make sure we get that out there for them.
Yeah, I think it is a very important distinction. So, if you look at Interchange Capital Partners, we're a registered investment advisory firm with the SEC. Most people who look at that think about investments, and that's it. Our approach in that area is much broader, much more collaborative, much more comprehensive. We define wealth management as a planning, investment management, and relationship management. So we've got that component. But what we recognized is we've spent a lot of our time helping people get to the point where they can unlock all the wealth that they've created either in their business or in their retirement accounts. And a lot of that work is our consulting work, which we charge hard dollar consulting fees for. So I'm glad you brought it up because it is a very important distinction. The other major distinction, obviously, is a registered investment advisory. We have a fiduciary obligation, which means everything has to be done in your best interest, and any conflicts of interest have to be upfront and center. So it is an important distinction that between our consulting practice as well as our wealth management, and then the distinctions within wealth management as it when you compare and contrast other who are working with traditional financial advisors.
Yeah, and one of the other parts here that I'd like you to maybe expand on a bit is just the RIA space in general. So there's a lot of people also listening that don't maybe understand the flexibility of what and the significance of working with an RIA beyond the point of the fiduciary part, because you can technically be fiduciary in other, let's just say, setups within the investment world, right? So there's ways that contracts can be done. But in terms of the RIA space specifically, and the growing popularity, I mean, of that, and why many more individuals in advisory firms that might have been brokers, or they might have had, there's a bunch of different ways, which we don't have to go through on this. But maybe I just elaborate a little bit more on that RIA space and why you went that route.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important. And to your point, when I was at UBS, I wore two hats. There was a fiduciary hat, but there was also a broker-dealer hat. And so sometimes those got confused. But in the major difference between the RIA space and traditional is who is the customer. And in a registered investment advisory, we are the customer. So we can go out to Wall Street and find anything that works as a great solution for our clients. When we are captive as employees of Merrill or Morgan or UBS, all of the opportunities that we have to present are limited based upon what these large banks and large institutions are comfortable in terms of presenting to their clients. And since they've got such large organizations and there's significant compliance risk to it, they tend to manage everything to the lowest common denominator. And because of their size, there's a significant amount of opportunity that just can't be met because we're dealing with opportunities that would just choke on, hundreds of millions of dollars coming in the door day one. So those are some of the distinctions and differences. As an RIA, we are customers, and we can go out there and look for anything that fits. Sitting at the firms, it's a curated list of what's available.
And so tell us a little bit more about your process. And I don't mean investment process or how you select a particular investment. I mean more so of your process of working with clients and kind of what it looks like to work with your team and also to work with essentially a partner and a consultant.
Yeah, I think that we take clients through three phases. Our first phase is to identify and quantify. So too often people start, there's an old story, we plan our vacations with greater detail than we plan our wealth management and our businesses. So the first step is getting clear on where you would like to be, taking a look at your current structures, both legal, financial, protection, banking, and see if you have accumulated enough to be able to ultimately move into the next chapter with some confidence that you're going to be able to cash flow your life until you're 99 years of age. So that identification and quantification is about what your bigger future look like. What are the obstacles and fears and dangers that are keeping you up at night about that? What are some of the opportunities that you'd like to capture during this transition? And then what are the strengths that you have that you can use and to support you in that process? So that's the first phase. And again, I tell many people skip that phase. And they go right into all the solutions. So the second phase is maximizing and protecting. And you want to, certainly as a business owner, you want to be, it is inevitable. It's not an if you're going to exit your business, it's when you're going to exit your business. So in the process, we don't know when that's going to be. So we have to continue to go in there every day and maximize our value, increase our value drivers, and decrease our value detractors. And then we've got to protect against all kinds of different things. We got to protect against taxes. We got to protect against unscrupulous employees. We got to protect ourselves against a whole myriad of information and potential scenarios and situations that many business owners really have forgotten about, or in the process of getting successful in their business, just didn't attend to that. And then finally, we move, once we continue that maximization and protection area, then we work in that third phase, which is actually figuring out the logistics around the transition and transaction and transfer. And too often, again, the business owner gets caught into the solution, phase 3, and goes down this road with well-intentions, spending lots of money, using lots of different advisors, and finding out that they came up woefully short because they didn't find out exactly where did they want to go to first, where did they want to get to. Businesses are very complicated by themselves, and many of the businesses we work with are family businesses. So you've got 4 entities that are competing and working and have to be aligned together to get successful outcomes. Obviously, you have the individual. So you've got the patriarch or matriarch of the family who is looking, saying, it's time for me to go. I'm not sure I want to go. I don't know how comfortable I am in going. Then you've got the family. In my case, I've got a son in the business and 2 children out of the business. And how do you be fair and equal? And that concept needs to be explored, because in many cases, equal isn't fair, because most of my wealth is tied up in the business, as most business owners are, and my son is helping to grow that wealth. Well, if we want to be equal, we split my ownership between all 3, and my oldest son would say, well, that's great. I'm now working for my brother and sister as I'm growing this. So that's and there are many other aspects around family. Sometimes you've got brothers and sisters in families and all the conflicts that potentially can happen. And then from there, you've got the business and making sure that runs, and you've got with business employees and vendors, et cetera. And then you've got ownership as well. So this idea of being able to recognize that there are 4 entities that have to be dealt with and how you deal with them, and see that as an entire system, rather than what traditionally happens. What traditionally happens is whichever one of those circles, if you will, is throbbing in pain at the moment, that's where all the attention goes to, and they try to fix it there, not realizing that maybe it's coming from one of the other circles, because we want to look at it as the entire system.
It makes total sense. And what I'd say is, if, and I know some are, but do you find in your experience that most business owners are going down this path of planning in advance, or do they normally come to you and it's they're kind of when they've already made the decision? And I'll tell you what happened so when I was an advisor, I remember I was working on a particular client prospect for like 2 years. And one day he comes to me and he has this, upper 7-figure check. And he's like, all right, Adam, I'm ready to get started. And I'm like, you already sold it? I've been working on trying to get you as a client for 2 years. We didn't get to do any of the planning. We didn't do anything else. And now, now you want me to save money on taxes? What are you talking about? It's already, you did it. It's done. You didn't structure the deal right. I'm sure you didn't do it all right, because you have a check and you're sitting in my office with it. Well, I'm happy to have you as a client. You don't know what you just did. And I wish you would have taken more of my calls, because I was calling you often and you wouldn't listen. Yeah. That's where I want to go with this one, because I know it's tricky and it's touchy.
Well, it's not tricky and it's not touchy. It's unfortunately the fact of life. We've done so many exit interviews, and what we come up with all the time is, I really wish I would have that put the time and energy or found my team or an individual or group who could have helped me plan this out better, because if it had been planned out better, the outcomes would have been better. What do we mean by outcomes being better? Maximizing value, mitigating taxes. Those are the primary two. I can't tell you how many times they come in after the fact, and then they want the work done. And this is not just from people who manage money. Accountants say the same thing. Attorneys say the same thing. Why do, and I believe we know why that happens. First of all, this thing is very complicated. They really don't know how to do it. And so when usually the one that shows up gets the knock on the door, or frankly, is a good friend of mine, he realized he was in business with his brothers and sisters. His son was not going to join the business. It would have required additional debt and additional work on his part. And he looked at his brothers and sisters and said, you know what, they're not really as committed as I am. My son's not. I'm just going to sell it. And so he went out there and sold it. And in the process of selling it, he found out all the things that had he known in advance before, he would have gotten more value and been able to mitigate more tax. He looked at me and said, is this common? I said, yeah, unfortunately, it's very common. What I want to remind your listeners, especially the business owners, is exit, transition, succession planning, call it whatever you want. The sooner the better, because it's just good business.
Yeah.
It's just good business. It's like you would go to school to learn how to become a better CEO, a better owner, by going through and checking the boxes and going through the recipe and the process of making sure that you find out what needs to be maximized in your business. Does your customer concentration, I mean, there's just, do you have an employee handbook? Do you have non-compete clauses? All these things that you never think about because you're busy focused on the business. And I understand it. We call it the 3 T's. Do I have time? Do I have the talent? And do I have the temperament? And the fact of the matter is, successful people tend to believe they have everything. But the reality of it is they don't. And because it's not because they couldn't, but they made their choice. They focused on running their business. They focused on their family. They focused on their community. All good things. But there's another side. There's an exit. It's inevitable. It's not if, it's when. And you would prepare for the largest financial transaction of your life because there's generational consequences if you do it incorrectly. And yet it's relatively easy if you have enough time. The issue is having the right team around you, and then having somebody on that team who knows how to manage a team. And there, unfortunately, many of great professionals are just that. They really know their stuff, but they don't really understand how to collaborate with a team and how to bring out the best solutions for the particular client. And it's really simpler when you look at it, but it's very difficult because initially the thought is, well, if I got to put a team together, it's going to cost me more. It's going to take more of my time. And it's just the opposite. It takes less of your time and it costs less because you're not going down rabbit holes that are unnecessary. You start with the beginning, identify and quantify. You get it very clear. You model it out. You know what you need in relation to how much has to come out. You then recognize if that comes out. Right now, if it comes out, it's going to be all taxable. If I do A, B, and C for the next 4 or 5 years, I could eliminate some of that taxability. Then there are issues around protecting, around employees, depending upon who you're going to sell it to. It's part of that identify and quantify. My friend didn't have a son who was going in the business, so that was out. There was no management team to sell it to. So it was clear he should go to a third party to try to sell that with it. But all of these things, if given enough time, so people say, well, how much time do I need? If you give us 2 to 3 hours a quarter, so what are we talking about here? 12 hours over the course of the year to be focused and concentrated on the single largest financial transaction of your life that is inevitable, you can eliminate 80% of all the issues and have a very successful transition. Now, I'm not saying it's only 12, because as you get more involved and certain things come up, there's going to be more time in the interim where you'll need to, listen to your advisors and hear what they're saying, and, other obstacles, other things will come up. But in general, it does not take as much time, and it certainly doesn't cost as much, because the multiple of return on the dollars you spend to do this thing is 10x if done correctly.
Yeah, I totally get it. And to me, I hate to see the waste. It's like the business owners work so hard, and they they plan so hard, and every dollar, like, nothing's given to you. You're fighting with things all your life, and now you want to leave, as much value to your family, your heirs, your charity, wherever you're leaving your money. Doesn't matter.
Right.
Even just keeping the your employees employed and their families, and all the other reasons why business owners pour their lives into what they're working on and to create this value. And then at the end, like, to drop the ball, it's like, I always tell people, I'm like, it's like, man, you're right there at the touchdown, you're about to be done, awesome career, you did it, and then you drop the ball at the 1-yard line, and then the other team, in this case, I'm going to call the other team, the IRS, gets to grab the ball and run it back, and they get a whole lot more value than they were entitled to, but just because you didn't have the right team working with you, because there's legitimate ways to plan for this. It's not like you're finding loopholes or this or that. It's just using the law and the body and using a correct strategy that's proven, and adapting as time goes. Everything can always change, laws, things like that changes, but that planning part just can leave you with so much more value.
There's no doubt. To your point, it's a proven process. What business owners forget, and what we all take for granted, is when we go to sleep tonight, we're going to wake up tomorrow morning. It's just not always the case. We hope it is, but it isn't always. So in many cases, even the ones that have been working towards the plan have forgot about the protection piece, and they get disabled or pass on, or something happens, and that changes it. But the one takeaway that I want to make sure everybody on the podcast remembers is this is eminently doable. The process has been around for a long time. Don't let the fact that you have all this complexity surrounding the 4 entities, yourself, the family, the business, and the ownership, prevent you from doing what you know should be done. And if you do it correctly, it's going to end up giving you and your family and generations to come these wonderful outcomes. We've seen too many cases where this hasn't been done. And it has left, unfortunately, some families who are used to a certain standard of living, now it's changed as a result of that. And to your point, when you started in business and you did all this hard work, you need to continue that all the way through, because exit planning, transition, succession planning, all of that is good business. And the sooner you get started, the better the outcomes.
Yeah, completely agree with that. Well, Ahmie, this has been great. If somebody's listening to this right now and they want to learn more about Interchange Capital Partners, what's the best way for them to connect with you and your team?
There's 2 ways. Obviously, go to our website, www.interchange, C as in capital, P as in partners.com, www.interchangecp.com. And if you'd like to email us, it's team, TEAM, at interchangecp.com. And we'd love to talk with you. We've got some additional education for those that need more education. We also are offering your listeners, those are business owners, to do an informal valuation of their business, which is critical to that first step of identifying and quantifying. And then we'd also build out some modeling capabilities so that they can look at various different scenarios. And I think that's the major difference around planning. Planning is just like you built the house. Oh, can we make that room a little bigger? That needs to be a little smaller. That's the beauty of planning. You do it all in advance. You model it out. You make sure it fits for you, and then you move forward with confidence.
Fantastic. Well, Ahmie, again, appreciate you coming on the show today. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. Hope you learned a lot. If you did, don't forget, hit that subscribe button. We have many more mission-based business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives coming on, and we don't want you to miss a thing. And Ahmie, thanks again for coming on the show. It's been great.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.